Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Jumpstart. I'm glad you're tuning in. Hey, I want to ask you a question. What is God calling you to do? I had to ask myself that question recently, and I discovered I was really limiting God by my narrow-minded thinking, my closed-minded thinking. I had tunnel vision. I didn't have a vision for God wanting me to meet people, God wanting me to start businesses, God wanting me to serve in certain areas, God wanting me to give to certain things. And He had a much bigger vision than I even had for myself. And I was limiting myself. And I had an epiphany just recently that I needed to stop limiting God and start thinking big, start thinking broader, start opening my vision to all that God has for me, because He has so much more than we can ask for or imagine. But many of us are waiting for God's provision to accomplish what He's called us to do. We're just waiting around. What if I told you I believe our provision will be found when we start taking steps towards what He's leading us to do? If God has called you to do something, we need to take steps toward that calling every day and believe that He will provide. We can't just sit back and wait. We can't just sit back assuming that God's got this, I don't need to do anything. We need to take active steps of faith. It reminds me of a quarterback and a receiver, and I heard this in a great sermon by Andrew Womack. He said, a quarterback's job is to lead the receiver to where he is going. And when that receiver runs the route, the ball will be, hopefully, where that receiver has run. He will get to his destination, and the ball will be there waiting for him. You see, if the quarterback throws the ball too late, it will probably be intercepted. I believe God operates the same way. I believe God operates the same way. A quarterback has to lead the receiver. When we get a call from God, we have to run the route, believing provision will be there for us along the way, but also believing that provision will be there when we get there. If He's called you to do it, He's going to provide for it. I believe many times our provision is found where God calls us to go. You may be in a job that you don't like. You may be and you're hearing from God, I want you to move, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. Do you really believe it? If you believe that He's calling you to do it, you need to take steps to move in that direction. What is that route He's calling you to run? He's going to provide for you. You just have to believe it. God is leading us. We have to step out in faith. We have to receive the ball of provision as we run the route He's called us to run. Many of us, including myself, we wait for God to provide instead of stepping out in faith. If He's called you to do it, take a step out in faith, knowing and believing that He's going to provide every step of the way. There's no better example of that than Elijah. God told him to do something and said His provision would be found where He told him to go. You see, if Elijah would have stayed where he was, he would have starved to death. And this passage of scripture comes from 1 Kings 17, 2-6. Then the word of the Lord came to him saying, get away from here and turn eastward and hide by the brook Cherith, which flows into the Jordan. And it will be that you shall drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord. Man, if we could just do that, if we could do what the word says. I'll say that again. So he went and did according to the word of the Lord, for he went and stayed by the brook Cherith, which flows into the Jordan. And guess what? The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and the bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. God provided his needs, but he had to go there to get it. What is your place called there? What is your place called there? What has God called you to do? God is the quarterback. God is trying to throw us the ball, but we are refusing to run the route He has drawn up for us. Your provision is in His hands, but you have to run in such a way that He can throw it to you. God ordered the ravens to feed Elijah where he was going. He couldn't stay where he was, or again, he would starve to death. If God has called you, then you can't stay where you are. You must run the route designed for you, knowing your provision is there. So many great men and women of the Bible all had to step out in faith. What is your place called there? Maybe it's a new business. Maybe it's stepping into a ministry or a new job. Maybe it's serving somebody or something like you've never done before. Maybe it's giving to something or someone that you've never given to before. What is your place called there? Whatever God has called you to do, take steps of faith towards it every day. Whatever God has called you to do, take steps of faith towards it every day. Real provision isn't found in complacency. Real provision isn't found in being comfortable. The disciples were all in the boat comfortable. I wouldn't say comfortable, but they were comfortable compared to what Peter did, which was get out of the boat and walk on the water when Jesus told him to come. Jesus is telling you to come, and you're sitting in the boat. What's he told you to do? What is your place called there? What is it? Step out of the boat. Step out of the boat and into all that God has for you. God wants to provide for all of your needs. We just have to run the route and catch the provision that's coming our way. We have to believe. Remember, we walk by faith and not by sight.